Hi there, and welcome to another one of my classic reviews, where I pick one of my all-time favourite movies, give it a rewatch, and then come review it. In this video I'm going to talk about Raiders of the Lost Ark, the very first Indiana Jones movie, and one of my all-time favourites. This is a film directed by Steven Spielberg, and from a story by George Lucas, who also executive produces the film. And I think what's really interesting is that George Lucas and Steven Spielberg spent a lot of their career repackaging genres that they really love. Spielberg and Lucas came about in the new Hollywood era, which was basically in the 70s, where a bunch of Hollywood directors started doing stuff which is inspired by movies that weren't just traditional Hollywood movies. They were inspired by B-movies or by foreign films. You know, people like Scorsese, for example, were really influenced by European movies. And what's really fascinating is that Spielberg and Lucas basically took all the movies that they loved that were old, from the 30s through to the 60s, and then they repackaged them in various ways. So for example, Star Wars is basically just Lucas taking samurai movies, which he loves, and 50 space operas, and transporting them to an original sort of story. Spielberg had a ton of UFO movies, E.T. and Carter of the Third Kind, and even Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is a homage to 50s UFO movies. You also get stuff like Poltergeist, which is kind of like a haunted house movie, which is a genre that was popular in the 60s. George Lucas cast Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in Star Wars because he was a huge fan of Hammer horror. You also have Jaws, which is basically like a big budget B movie. So they basically repackaged these genres which they loved from when they were younger, and then they became big hits and they kickstarted blockbusters. And blockbusters today can be traced back to the very old movies because Lucas and Spielberg brought those old genres back to the forefront. And Indiana Jones, or Raiders of the Lost Ark specifically, is exactly that. Partially, Spielberg wanted to make a James Bond type movie, but more significantly, George Lucas wanted to make a movie in the style of adventure serial movies from the 30s and 40s. So they came up with the idea of Indiana Jones, and then they made it into a film. And what's really fascinating is that they're taking these old concepts, which are classic, which existed long before them, but they're repackaging them and they're re-putting them out there. And if anything, they're making them more iconic. I mean, Indiana Jones is a name that everybody knows. Who knows the names of the old adventure serials films that inspired Lucas? No one really knows what they are. Indiana Jones, as a hero character, comes pre-packaged. When you watch Raiders of the Lost Ark, in the first few minutes, you don't even see Indiana Jones fully. You only ever see like his hands or long shots. When we finally see his face, it takes a good few minutes to get to his face. But that moment comes and we all already know he's an icon because the film is letting us know this guy is someone who's iconic. In fact, what's also important is that he has an instant hero status because the film makes no effort to develop Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones does not change. He is who he is at the beginning of the film and he's the same guy at the end. There's no development in the film because the film isn't trying to be that. The film is just trying to have a good and a bad guy. And the bad guys are really obvious. Belloc is the very cliched, smarmy villain that everyone automatically hates, and then the Nazis are easy fodder villains because everyone knows the Nazis are bad, and it automatically ups the stakes because obviously the Nazis have to be stopped. So it's cheap in that way, but it's not bad because it understands that that's what it's doing. It's deliberately making Indiana Jones a character that you have an attachment to instantly without ever having to work for it. It doesn't need to develop him. You just know he's a badass guy, he's mysterious, he's charismatic, and he's likeable. So then when the film kicks off, and it's just shallow, there's nothing there, but when it kicks off, all it is just fun. Because every single punch Indy makes you care about because he's a hero, that the film has made you think he's a hero without even seemingly working for it. On top of that, Raiders of the Lost Ark is just Spielberg at his finest. The staging, the editing, every single aspect of this on technical level is perfect. It's such a well-made movie. If you look at all of the action, it's so exciting. Every single punch, you cheer, and you feel sad whenever he has a setback. But you always know he's going to win, and that's part of it. It's a film that knows exactly what it is because it is a film that is designed to be a homage to something else. And so it's taken these classic ideas, repackaged them, repurposed them, and made them more successful than ever. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a classic because of that, because it's so engaging as it is. It is watchable, it's exciting, it's breathless. I mean, I love everything about it. I just love how fun it is. You know, of course, it's flawed. I mean, the storytelling isn't great. Marianne's a bit inconsistently characterised. Films that tend to be this kind of simplistic, schlocky, not trying sort of genre, which is kind of how you often think of them. You think of films where the characters are badly developed, or badly characters, just, oh, they're not really trying, they're just throwing shit together. No, they planned it like this. They deliberately worked and went, okay, we're going to take this old genre, which is kind of lowbrow art, and we're going to just nail it. So we're going to make it so this time every single action scene doesn't look shit, and every single effect looks great. And oh, by the way, the practical effects in Raiders of the Lost Ark are amazing. It's just really well made schlock, which boosts it so much so that it's actually in and of itself a work of art. You know, in a way that like Tarantino now get praised for. Tarantino, you know, takes old kung fu movies and redoes them, and old spaghetti westerns. Spielberg's already done this. Spielberg and Lucas have taken old genres that people considered just low-brow stuff, like, oh, who cares about UFO movies? Who cares about old adventure movies? Well, then they bring them back in the 70s and 80s and people go, oh wow, what works of that? Yeah, because they know what they're doing. So they go, I like that genre that no one respects, and I'm gonna just do it again, but do it respectfully and do it with skill. And so that's what's so wonderful about it. It's every single watch of Raiders of the Lost Ark is as fun as the last. Every single scene is charming. It's full of fun adventure. The sequels get bogged down with bad characters and superfluous elements. You know, like I love The Last Crusade, but I mean, it's just a repeat of this. This is just simple, effective cinema made really, really well. This is Steven Spielberg doing what he does best without even trying. I think this is just fantastic. It's just clearly a classic and one of the best Hollywood blockbusters that there's ever been. Oh, and Harrison Ford is obviously amazing. Incidentally, the film he did before this was The Empire Strikes Back, and the film he did after was Blade Runner. So that's a run of 3 films, which is pretty fucking great. That might be the best run of 3 films any blockbuster actor has ever had. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this film. I imagine everyone pretty much loves it, but you can leave a comment. I'd be interested to read any opinions that you have. If you like this video, give it a like. If you want to see more of me, just subscribe, because I review shit all the time. If you want to follow what I'm watching, you can follow me on Twitter or on Letterboxd. And thank you for watching.